When I was in IP1, every time my teacher told me a new science concept which was off syllabus, the first question I had to ask him or her would always be, is it tested? I obviously didn't have the best learning aptitude. I almost felt like a robot just memorizing whatever my science teacher told me and just spitting it out in the exam. And because of this, I was really unmotivated and I struggled to study. But I simply didn't understand why was I so unmotivated when I was using the fear of the bad grade as my motivation. I knew what I would have to study so that I get the good grade on the exam. So all of this kind of didn't make sense. I thought that I should have been motivated, right? So I wanted to ask myself, what is motivation? It can be thought of a simple cycle as do this, get that. When we give someone a reward to do a task, they do it more and they do it better. So let me give you two examples from my life. Whenever I go back home, my mother asks me to do chores and she gives me an allowance on that. And because she wants me to build a good work ethic and keep me continuing helping around the house. And that's why she does that. And in her perspective, it would be do this, get that, as in I'm doing the chores and I get that, as in I get the reward of the allowance. Employers give their employees bonuses because they want the employees to keep working hard. In the employee's perspective, it would be do this, get that, as in do the hard work and get the bonus. All of this seemed very intuitive. And the common understanding is that when we give someone a reward to do a task, they will do it more and they will do it better. When you reward someone to do a certain task, they are slower, make more mistakes, less creative, and more irritable. Decades and decades of studies suggest exactly this. Let me give you some examples. If you're trying to get people to quit smoking, those who are not given the financial incentive were lighting up more often than those who were expected nothing. If you're trying to get people to memorize words, those who expected nothing did much better than those who were working for the financial incentive. Even for IQ tests with third graders, those who expected nothing did much worse than those who were promised a toy. To summarize all of this, let me give you a quote from Alfie Kohn. What rewards do and what they do with devastating effectiveness is smother our enthusiasm for things that we might have otherwise enjoyed. I understood that all of these studies were true, but simply didn't understand why the previous model was wrong. So why is this? This is because when we relate a task to a reward, we devalue the task. Because of the fact that if we require a reward to do the task itself must have no value. Let me give you an example from my own life. Once I was coming back from school and I wanted to help my mother out. I was intrinsically motivated to help her out. But the second I went to help her out, she immediately said, come and do this work for me. I'll give you extra allowance next week. And at that exact moment, I just didn't feel that motivation to help her out anymore. At that point in time, I didn't understand why I just had this drastic drop in motivation. But now I understand it is because of the fact that my mind was relating the reward to the task. And I wasn't doing the task for what it was. I can even see this in my classmates when they're picking science projects. They always pick the easiest project because they don't see the value of learning, simply because they relate the task of the project to the reward of the grade. So the grade is all that matters to them. And after all of this research, I understood why rewards don't work and that me motivating myself using grades was simply not working. So I wanted to change for the better. Instead of using grades as the motivator and using missing out on the good grades as a motivator, I use curiosity as a motivator. Let me give you an example. Voltage is current times resistance. And most of us, it doesn't mean anything. To most of us, it doesn't mean anything. But when you really think about it and what day-to-day applications it has, you realize that it is what makes up majority of our phones and laptops that we cannot live without today. So when I was studying, instead of focusing on the fact that this formula is what I had to spit out during the exam, I would rather focus on how this formula impacted my life and thus became more interested in it and used curiosity as my motivator. I stopped asking my teacher, why is this tested? Instead, I asked him or her about what else him or her had found out about that topic to find out more and be curious because that was my motivator. Moreover, I became the opposite of what these studies found, because the studies found out that when you relate a reward to a task, the people who do the task are slower, make more mistakes, less creative, and more irritable. I became the opposite of all of that. I became faster, I made less mistakes, I was less creative, and less irritable. And that was my journey on how I changed my perspective on grades to boost my performance.